Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show.
Hi, everyone. This is Gail Carson. And every once in a while, you run across a woman who has done fantastic things that you didn't even know about or when they were happening. Well, my guest today is someone like that, just exactly like that. And guess what? She's got my first name. We spell it differently, but we're both Gail. So my guest is Gail Zelitzky. And Gail is a former two-time multi-million-dollar business owner. She's a serious entrepreneur and the first franchisor of the national retail liquor chain, Foremost Liquors. And then she founded the groundbreaking worldwide internet company, Liquor by Wire and Liquor.com. For the last 20 years, she's devoted her business to guiding women and men to success. In each case, her creative approach to sales and systematic organizational structure fuels their growth and results in award-winning, sustainable businesses. Gail believes that business owners, just like professional athletes and symphonic musicians, must acquire different skills and skill sets to be able to stay at the top of their game. GearShift is the innovative fast-track coaching program she developed to drive their growth. Founded on the belief that creativity, alongside structure, changes a company's DNA, this approach promotes leadership, culture, employee engagement, team performance, and operational excellence, all necessary conditions for businesses to succeed in today's competitive marketplace. She's also founder of Wonder Women Mastermind, a unique ongoing program for women business owners with employees in business 15 years or more. Wow, Gail, are you tired yet?
I don't know who you're talking about, Gail.
Well, of course, you and I started out in business a long time before it was fashionable for women, and you certainly have created an empire, which I didn't do. I had my little empire, that I had, but you really became this national force, and but yet all of this, I mean, you heard what I said about you, and all of it is true. You say that you're an accidental entrepreneur. So how do you see yourself as an accidental entrepreneur when you've been able to create all of these things?
That's a really good question, Gail. So first of all, I never intended to go into business. I was going to be a teacher. I was going to be a professor of early education. I was going to be doing anything except going into business. However, I was born into this entrepreneurial family, and my father was very successful, and he was very creative and in business, and so he accomplished some really great things. And what happened was that my husband of 15 years left me with 3 children, no money, and I needed a job. And so my father said, Gail, why don't you come work for me? Which I also always believed was because he knew he'd have to support me. I had no money and had 3 children. So I figured he figured he'd get the best out of me. I always loved business, Gail. From the time that I was a little girl, I always loved being in my father's office. We talked business around the dinner table, and yet nobody in my family ever thought about me as being an entrepreneur, someone who would like to go into business, and that's how I got on my path to being an educator. So I'm accidental entrepreneur. I got into his business, and a few years later, I was president and COO and ran the national retail liquor chain, Foremost Liquors.
Well, it's interesting because I think it's almost like what is born out of necessity. There are people who say, "Oh, poor little me," and what am I going to do, and why is this happening to me? And then there are people that say, boy, I'm in this situation. The only person going to get me out of it is me, and so this is what I have to do. Now, you were fortunate in the fact that, you know, your father was successful and you came from a great family and all of that. But still, it took you to be able to do that. And it wasn't fashionable back then. And I know, you know, certainly when I started, it was not fashionable. And I laugh all the time because my mom used to say to me, you know, you can do anything you want to do and go for it and so forth. And then when I told him I was going into business, I was 21. I was going to, why do you want to tie yourself down? Why do you want to, you know? So it's kind of interesting how that all kind of plays out.
But, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Yeah. But again, if you weren't competent and you weren't capable, you wouldn't have made a go of it. So you deserve a lot of credit for doing that. So here you went into business, but you say that you also learned a lot while you were there that helps you in your coaching business today. Now, I know you coach business women, so you coach, you know, you're not just doing life skills, you're coaching on business skills. So what specifically did that teach you, and are you imparting it in your coaching business today?
So, yeah, and that's very interesting because a lot of what I learned during those years, and it was about, 25 years that I spent in the liquor industry and all in those three businesses, I didn't realize what I was learning, right? It was only after I started coaching and consulting with other kinds of companies that I realized everything is pretty universal when it comes to what makes a business go and more what makes a good leader. And so I was always amazed during the years that I worked with the foremost liquor stores that all of them, all over the country, it was the same. All of them, they all had access to the same name, Foremost Liquor Stores. Pay less, get more at your Foremost Liquor Store. They had access to the same sales promotions, merchandising programs, same buying. We bought for the stores. We were a co-op buying group, essentially. We did the same advertising for them. And so each one of them had the opportunity to bring in the same customers, right? And once those customers got into their stores, what happened? What happened was that too many of those liquor store owners languished around 250, 300,000 a year. But there were the star performers, and the star performers excelled at 10, 12, $15 million a year, which today probably equates to 100 million. And so they were the star performers. So I realized that I was learning from them. And I was watching the way that they worked with their employees and the way that their businesses grew. And so it really informs how I coach today. It gives me a greater understanding, really, of leadership and what it means to have drive and motivation.
Well, of course, I remember Foremost Liquors because...
You do?
Oh, I sure do, because they were very big, at least in Miami Beach. And I used to have I used to have a convention service company among, you know, the businesses that I had. And we used to do spouse programs and tours and things like that. And what I used to do, which was very unique at the time, when I was doing these tours, and sometimes we had 2, 3, 4 buses full of women who were going on these tours that I created. I had like 5, 6 different packages. But what we would do is we would serve them champagne on the bus. And so, and we went to Foremost to get the champagne. So I used to buy a lot of champagne from you, Gail. And and of course the women just thought it was a hoot. You know, they loved it. And I used to get those little glasses, you know, how those little plastic champagne glasses. And and I had women on each bus, and they were, pouring the champagne for everybody. And it was really, really interesting. So, yeah, Foremost was really big in Miami Beach. So I was very, very familiar with it. And So you learned all these lessons, observing all these different. I guess they were franchises. I don't know what they were. Were they company owned or were they all franchises?
They didn't start out, this is interesting too. They didn't start out to be a franchise. When my father started the program, he simply knew that in order for the small mom and pop stores to compete in the marketplace that was happening at that time, which meant that big box retailers were coming in from everywhere. You had the Jewel, Osco's were starting to carry liquor, Walgreens was starting to carry liquor, and then you had the big barns and the liquor barns and all. And so all he knew was that his four tiny mom pa type liquor stores were, and all of his colleagues were, they were going to go nowhere, and they were probably going to be put out of business, which is a common thread in our economy. And so they simply decided, my father decided, that he would put together those stores, and they would brainstorm. It's so interesting to me that the things that we do today that we consider new ways of being creative and team building, that they would just do it naturally. And so he brought together 11 retailers, and he said, we're going to die. What can we do here? How can we stay in business? Because when these big box retailers hit our market, we're just mashed potatoes. And the result was that they started Foremost Liquor Stores. And the unique thing about it then was that these retailers took their names off of their stores. Retailers can be an egotistical bunch, right? They took their names off their stores and said, okay, we're going to go and we're going to create a chain store image. And that's what they did. And so they weren't really a franchise initially. They were a co-op buying and advertising group. But they did such a great job of merchandising the name Foremost. And my father was so creative that he knew just what to do, that pretty soon the state of Illinois said, you're not just a buying group. You are a franchise, and you need to file a franchise disclosure. And that's how we became a franchise.
Amazing. Just amazing. And yeah, I have talked to so many, because, I coach businesses as well. And I've talked to so many people who kind of go into a tailspin when they know, like a Walmart or somebody like that, or a Costco is coming into their shopping center, let's say. And but of course there's a cute story of somebody I know who had a small shop, but it was located between a Walmart and another big store, and people kind of were just drawn to that particular store because it was in the middle, and they kind of thought it was an entrance. So they would go into the store. It had nothing to do with either Walmart or the other store. But, again, opportunity comes to different people and their imagination in a lot of different ways. So the other thing that you certainly are very good at, and I can see that it's probably part of the Wonder Woman Mastermind. Why are you so interested in creativity for business?
Because creativity takes a lot of different stances, right? So in business, right, creativity has to do with creative problem solving, how you approach issues, how you think, what ideas you come up with, how you diverge and let your mind go wild, and then how do you converge on a few good ideas, and then where do you take that? And so I watched this happen with the Foremost Liquor Stores, and then I carried it into my own the second business I had in the industry, which was Liquor by Wire, and finally Liquor.com, which was a morph of Liquor by Wire, so essentially a second business. And the thing of it is that in order to stay one step ahead of the competition, in order to keep bringing customers into your retail environment, you have to be creative. You have to think outside the box. You have to ask, what are all the ways that I can do this differently? And some of the things that we did was, putting up banners in stores that had monthly merchandise programs. That was something that never happened before. Holding mass public wine tastings. We were the first to do that. Holding mass public beer tastings. We were the first to do that. We had art auctions where people brought pictures that they made, paintings that they did of art having to do with, wine and beer and champagne and all. And then the other aspect of the creativity I learned was how to work with all the different stakeholders. So in the liquor business, which is an easy way to discuss this, who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are the distilleries who make the product, the wholesalers who sell the product to the retailers, and the clients, the customers themselves. And so I'm just passionate about how you use creativity in business. And I do use it with my Wonder Women Mastermind group, and I use it with everyone that I coach with, because the whole idea is for you to switch your perspective and come to new ways of thinking that will allow you to dominate a market or to create a new revenue stream or work with your employees differently. That's why I love creativity.
Well, I've never really considered myself a creative person. And yet people always think I'm so creative because I do so many things and I create so many groups. But again, I just think there are people who are naturally creative. I mean, they've got more ideas coming out of their little pinkies than I've got coming out of my entire body. But again, success in business means that you need to be versatile and you need to be able to react to what's happening and hopefully see it before it happens or it's too late. So creativity is a big part of business, and I think somehow it's got to be included in more and more school curriculum. So then, of course, you got on the internet, and I have to confess, when the internet first came out, I thought it was kind of this passing fancy, shall we say. I was not really that so for it. In fact, I remember when I got my first computer, and this is really true, I got my first computer because I had to. I mean, it was called Staying in Business. And I almost thought when I turned it on, it was going to blow up. I mean, I just had absolutely no knowledge of technical skills or anything like this at all. So I knew I had to do something, to get over this. So I actually hired somebody to come into my office and work with me. And she only gave me 3 lessons. And she said, Gail, you know what to do naturally. I said, no, I don't. So she said, yeah, you do. You just have to do it every day and it becomes easier. So you started this same business online. So what was it like to be on that cutting edge for, the internet?
It actually wasn't the same business because, of course, Foremost Liquors was a retail business, and the Liquor by Wire was initially a catalog business. We were on CompuServe. I wonder who out there remembers CompuServe.
Oh,
do you remember it?
I do. Yes.
Yes, and CompuServe was it didn't do anything. It was like a static opportunity to showcase your catalogs online, and of course we did that. We had an annual holiday catalog. We started out by putting that online and letting people order liquor. Now, what we did that was so creative and different was that we used our network of retailers around the country, which eventually numbered 3,000 around the country and around the world. And that enabled us to let people send liquor from Illinois to California, or from Minnesota to Canada, and so for gift giving during the holiday season, that was a big deal, and it was really exciting, and it took off unbelievably. And eventually, as the computing world got more sophisticated, we morphed our company, Liquor by Wire, into liquor.com. Now, this was a business that I created with my son, Steve Olsher. And I think you know him. He's very famous in the podcasting
Steve,
world.
Yeah, not only that, Steve is the founder of the New Media Summit, and I did have the honor of being one of his icons, and I've been invited back for the February summit. So yeah, he's a very entrepreneurial guy as well.
Yeah, yes, he is. We worked together for 9 years. And I'm glad to hear that you're going to be there in February, because, of course, I'm going to be there in February, too. One of the things that we didn't mention that I do is I'm the lead coach for the Icon Maker program that Steve runs, and that's a year-long mastermind, that coaching program that he runs. So that's kind of fun. We get to work together again, and yeah, it's really neat. But liquor.com, it was a very exciting time. It was an exciting time, and it was a difficult time, because liquor, as you know, carries with it all kinds of rules and regulations, and crossing state lines to deliver liquor was not something you could do, thus the FTD model. And because it was fraught with regulations that people did not understand, we had a very hard time getting funding. And it is illegal to sell liquor across state lines. We used our network of retailers, and we grew, and we became a multi-million-dollar company. And so, but we were having trouble getting funding. And at that time, to have a first-class merchant, e-merchant program online was a fortune and a half. We decided to take the company public. And we came very, very close to doing it. We were accepted on the NASDAQ. We went through the whole SEC process. We went out to raise funds. But what happened? Talk about being creative. What happened was we got caught in the dot-com crash. And so everything we built imploded.
Wow.
And that's why I'm no longer in the liquor industry.
Well, we have two parts to this program. We're coming up to the end of our first part. You can certainly see why Gail is a successful business coach, and why she's a successful business mastermind creator. So it's important for us to really listen to what she has said about how she became a really a powerful influence in this liquor industry. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how she has utilized all of this to be a great business coach. And I think it's important for everybody to also, because remember, guys, you're out there listening and saying, oh, gosh, I hit 50. It's all over for me. I mean, there's nothing I can do. This is the end. And nuh-uh. I mean, here is a woman who was very successful, could have stopped and just rested on her laurels and just not done anything else. And she's still creating and working and doing to this day. And that's what's important about this program, is that you understand that it's never over until it's over. And that's the whole key. So I just think it's great, Gail, that you've been able to do all of this, and you're still doing, and you're still going. And when we come back, we're going to talk about your career as a business coach, and some of the things you've done, the books you've written, and all of those kinds of things. So stay with us, folks. We'll be back with Gail Zelitzky.